I love when people are loud and wrong about something. In this movie, Cuties, they're loud and wrong. Hi guys, it's your girl Lala G here for the Absolute Most channel, here where we focus on fashion, pop culture, current events. And today's topic is something that is super current event and pop culture, the movie Cuties. We all know the world loves controversy, and this movie Cuties is a controversial movie. I honestly had not seen anything about it. I'd heard everything secondhand, like a lot of people who are putting their opinions about this movie. I had no opinions neither in here nor there because I'm a type of person that I need to research before I form an opinion instead of taking it from word on word from someone else. Now, normally, I wouldn't be too, hesitant, or I wouldn't be too eager to get a review out or anything on something like this. But since people are so wrong about this, I figured why not? We all know a picture is worth 1,000 words, and the main example of that is the poster for Cuties. It does show a bunch of underage girls about the age of 11 in scantily clad wear, and there is a trailer which doesn't help at all the cause of this movie and what it's meant, what it was created for. But if you don't watch the movie, then you don't know what the entire thing is about. The image that was originally posted on Netflix is probably the most misrepresentative of the entire film. In fact, the film is more focused on a girl who is pulled between two worlds, her Muslim family, and then trying to fit in society. I wouldn't even say fit in with a group of people. Would just fit in with society. If anything, this film should spark a conversation between children and their parents. I mean, our kids today are mocking what they see on social media. I have to be honest. A lot of the stuff that these kids are going through are the same exact things that we went through or I went through when I was younger, trying to do things that are to make yourself feel accepted within a certain group, mocking what we see on television because we didn't have social media back then. And thank God, because it would be the same exact story. The only thing is that this director pushes it just a little bit to the limit to make you uncomfortable. And that fact that it makes you uncomfortable, it should be the main reason why you should want to have these conversations with your children. Especially with the part with her Muslim family and dealing with the Muslim traditions and trying to accept those traditions and just even learning about those traditions and then what you see, like you said again, what you see on social media and television, all those things have impact on our children, and this movie just makes it even more aware. And the funny thing is that it is not as sexual as people have made it out to be, as have deemed it. I'm sorry if I've said that before, but it's the facts. That's the truth about this film. In fact, the whole dancing scene is probably 10 minutes, if not less, on this whole movie. And this movie is a good hour and a half, if not maybe just a smidge, a little bit longer. So, there's more to the movie than just the provocative dancing. It's a person who's trying to come of age, that whole come of age, grow up thing. And maybe some of y'all need to see that so we can have these conversations with our kids. There's a saying that they say about films, and I want to make sure I get it right. It is depiction does not equal endorsement. So what you're seeing here, we don't endorse these girls that are scantily clad and doing whatever to attract boys and things like that. But it's what our kids are going through. And the sooner that we all realize this, the more conversation can be had. What I'm going to do is I have no kids. I'm just looking at this from a person who loves film, who wants to be a filmmaker, all that good stuff. So what I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna add or some I'm gonna show you guys some videos from some people who have seen this movie and who have developed their own thoughts about this movie. So here you guys go.
Let's talk about Cuties. I didn't intend to watch this movie originally because I'm not a kid and I'm not a parent and I don't really like indie movies or French cinema. But here we are. There were too many arguments online that were made in bad faith saying that this is child porn and it's the worst thing you've ever seen and it's got to be stopped and it's got to be banned and delete your Netflix subscription and all that stuff. And that's stupid. This movie is not that bad. It's not a kids movie. It's definitely not a kids movie in the way that Americans think of kids movies as being like, sparkly, sickly sweet depictions of, modeling. It's not a kids movie in the way that Americans think of kids movies as being, really intense and sparkly messaging about friendship marketed at 3 and 4 year olds. Like, of course, this is not a kids' movie. It's a movie for possibly parents to watch with their preteen and teenage kids because this movie is a really realistic movie. The depictions of the kids' lives are really realistic. That a lot of kids, especially now, but always, are under supervised. They're under guided, that there isn't somebody that they can go to when they're having questions or issues that they can honestly discuss with them, that they're not going to feel like they're going to get in trouble or be judged about. And I think that is the most important thing to take away from this movie, is that kids are already doing all of this. I remember being 11 and watching MTV and learning how to twerk. I remember being, not much older than that and seeing porn for the first time. I remember, having friends that were bullies that were trying to, use ostracism and peer pressure to make me do things I didn't want to do. And I think those are important conversations to have with kids, because without those conversations, kids have to navigate these things on their own. And it's really scary and hard to do this on your own. This is a really crucial age for kids. It's when you start learning how to be independent. you start sort of figuring out how to be an adult, and you have no skills for doing that. And if you don't have an adult in your life that you can talk to about how to navigate this, then you're completely on your own. And that's why these kids make the decisions that they make, is because of the pressures and lack of guidance that they're feeling. It's really fucking hard. Being a kid is fucking hard. And I think that's something that we forget because we're done with it. Learning how to walk is fucking hard, but all of us are so far past that it's easy for us now. It's really easy to forget how much kids are going through, especially at that age. God, it's been so long since any of us were that age. I think that there is one thing in this movie that is extremely unrealistic. And this is the point that I think is the most important takeaway from any conversation that I have about this movie. And it's that no adult ever in the movie objectifies these kids. Nobody ever catcalls them. Nobody ever comments on their bodies in a creepy way. No, and even when they do interact with adults in a way where they are trying to sexualize themselves at adults, the adults shut it down immediately. And that is extremely unrealistic. If you ask any girl or woman, then around that age is when they're going to report that they were sexualized for the first time. Sometimes younger, but I don't remember making it farther than 12 or 13 before somebody commented on my body in a sexual manner. I remember being about that age when I was catcalled for the first time, and most women will report that same thing, that girls are already sexualized. They are. It's a tragedy. It's something that shouldn't happen, but the conversation needs to be had with them that when that happens, it's not their fault, that they can talk to somebody about it. They can talk to you about it, that it's not okay. And we need to be having conversations with all children, male and female, and, gender nonconforming, that they don't need to be sexualizing themselves so early, but much more importantly, they don't need to sexualize others that early. And that's a message that they can take into their adulthood, and hopefully we can turn the tide of this truly disgusting thing that has happened to women for their whole lives, which is, catcalling and sexualization that they didn't want and that they're not asking for. I think another really important thing to understand about this movie is that it's a movie about one very specific girl joining a very specific group of girls. And with Amy, she is trying to navigate two very different worlds. She's not trying to navigate the sort of permissive, progressive Western culture of modern day France and her very religious, conservative upbringing, and trying to sort of navigate watching her mother be completely disempowered. And she wants to have some amount of power. And the way that we teach young girls, especially, the way that we teach women and young girls to have power and to utilize power is through sexuality. And it's really easy for girls to see that messaging and utilize it in a way that they're not ready to and that they're not responsible enough to handle. I cannot say enough about this movie, how unrealistic it was to me that nobody is ever making these girls feel uncomfortable. Nobody ever says, anything creepy to them, really. Every adult male in the movie shuts it down. Even the older boys, teenage boys that are at the most maybe 4 or 5 years older than these girls, are telling them, like, you're kids, go play with dolls. This is ridiculous. You're so not a sexual being to us. You are a child. And I think that's really important because that isn't always the case. That, women report these kinds of behaviors, being catcalled and being sexualized really young. I don't think this movie is as bad as people are saying that it is. I definitely don't think it's as damaging as people are saying that it is. I really hate this argument when it comes to uh, like physical abuse of children, but I watched way worse than this when I was a kid. I was exposed to all kinds of stuff I shouldn't have been exposed to at that age. And I mean, shouldn't, who knows? And I turned out okay. Like, I mean, I'm not great, but I'm okay. I'm a functioning member of society. I don't have any like, super fucked up ideas about whatever. Me learning how to twerk in my bedroom at 11 from MTV videos didn't turn me into something that I wasn't already going to be. I already was who I was. I already had the morals and ethics that I already had. I really haven't changed as a person that much. But kids exercise, who they want to be, who they are. They go through those phases and sort of figure that stuff out on their own.
This movie obviously is causing a bunch of controversy. It's all over the internet. People are dropping their Netflix subscriptions because of it. And I have a lot of thoughts about it. The first thing I'll say is this: it's not about what the internet would have you believe it's about. So I would encourage you in any sort of controversial situation, before you jump on a bandwagon, just look at the actual media. I would encourage you to watch this movie if you're really curious about what people are saying about it. It is not a celebration of pedophilia or a marketing of young girls to people. It's a story about one young girl in particular and kind of her role in this group of girls. And, this girl in particular, she's going through a hard time in her family, a kind of strange time in her religion, sort of coming into womanhood and dealing with what comes along with that. And I will say two things. The first thing I'll say is this. Number one, I was an 11-year-old girl once, and I see 11-year-old girls pretty regularly, friends of my son and kids at school. And I'll just say that nothing in this movie that these kids were doing or anything that kids aren't doing. So they are dancing, like this. They're stepping into, their sexuality and how to get attention and how to make friends. And I think we can all agree that they're struggling with how to do that in today's day and age with social media, and what kind of attention is good attention, what kind of attention is bad attention. And nothing about this movie is showing us anything that's not really happening or the kids aren't going through. So I'll say that. And the second thing I'll say is, as a older woman with kids, it is hard. It is hard to watch. Like, there were movies that came out when I was that age, when I was 11, 12, 13, about kids that age that were worse than this, actually. A lot worse than this, that were critically acclaimed, award-winning movies, guys. And I remember watching them at that time and feeling like, oh, somebody understands how hard it is, right, to be a kid, to be, in my preteens and teens, and not understand what's happening with my body, not understand what's happening with my friends, not understanding, like, the choices we make to get attention in the world. And so it is hard as an adult now with kids that has learned some lessons from those things to see kids acting out in that way. It's hard for me to see it in real life. It's definitely hard for me to watch it on a movie. And there were a couple of scenes in the movie that were a little tough. Like, I'm not sure if I agree with the director's choice as far as like how it was shot, if it couldn't have been handled a little differently. But all in all, I think it's an accurate portrayal of what young girls deal with as they're coming through that part of their lives. And I get very frustrated when controversy comes up over things like this that try to shame girls out of that exploration, or turn that exploration into something dirty, as opposed to people who would exploit that exploration, which this is not an exploitation of it at all. It's a very honest, accurate portrayal of it. And it gets it gets me very frustrated that people have such a hard time watching and trying to empathize and understand what girls go through, during that time in their lives, and turn it into something so ugly and so tough. And Sean and I talked about, like, does this have something to do with the fact that the main character is a girl of color, her friends? It's definitely like a certain demographic, and there's some religious tone in there, and the director is a woman of color, and I don't know. I wonder about that. I haven't read enough of the controversy to know where it's coming from, because I really just wanted to watch it for myself. But it's an interesting question, and it is curious, because of the movies I was thinking about when I was a kid that came out. It was mostly, white teenagers in those movies, and they definitely had some controversy. We didn't have Netflix at the time, so you couldn't cancel your subscription, but you for sure could try to keep your kids from going, or get, they would put the really bad ratings on those movies so you couldn't watch them. But I don't know if I can remember enough what that looked like at the time to compare it to this. But anyway, I'm digressing. Essentially, watch it for yourself, make your own decision about it, and try to consider it from the standpoint of, our kids are dealing with these things. Our kids are, stepping into a different world as they're, exploring their sexuality. They've got a whole lot more on board than we did at the time. And while this movie is tough to watch as a grown woman with kids, because it makes me hurt for what our kids are having to navigate, I think it was an important story. So that's it for me.
That is our video today, guys. Let me know what you think down in the bottom of the comments. Like, don't like, just let me know. If you have anything to say, if you've seen the movie and you want to comment, please go ahead and comment down the bottom. Let's open up a discussion about what is the heart of this movie. And if you don't want to have a discussion with me, have a discussion with your kids about this. But out of all the movies that I've seen that cause controversy, this is probably the most tamest of one of those movies. So again, I am Lala G. This is the absolute most. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that bell down at the bottom. Thank you. You guys have a good day, good morning, good afternoon, a good night, a good midnight snack, a 3 a.m. bathroom break. Love you guys.